Hi again, everybody. My name is Greg Anderson, and this is the Good Timekeeping Show with Greg Anderson. Today, I want to talk about radio-controlled clocks and watches. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you know that's one of my favorite kinds of clocks and watches. The ones that automatically receive atomic time information and set themselves to the right time, correct right down to the second, or just fractions of a second, so minuscule that you won't even notice that it's wrong, right? So I love the clocks and watches that set themselves. And here's the first one I got back in November of 1995, a Junghans MEGA clock. This one, well, you put a battery in it and you let it go. You can select which time zone you want it to show. And this one's made for the United States. So the time zones you can select are Pacific, Mountain, Central, and Eastern time. And that's it. You select your time zone and the clock does the rest. So if you are in a place where atomic time reception from WWVB doesn't work, or it's too weak to work, then this clock isn't going to do anything. It's going to, send the hands up to the 12 o'clock position and just wait for a good radio signal. And if it doesn't happen, then the clock's not going to do you very much good. Now, I live really close to Colorado. I'm in Utah. If you could make a straight line from my house to WWVB, the transmitter in Fort Collins, it'd be about 350 miles. So I'm well within range and should be getting good reception. And the truth is I do get good reception consistently for my radio-controlled clocks and watches. So when it comes to reception problems, I'm maybe not the expert on what to tell you about that, although I have tried to make a video with a few tips and tricks that may help you out. But if you live in an area where reception is very, very weak, or maybe just impossible because you're just too far away from a good atomic time transmitter, there are some alternatives out there in the form of apps. Now, I found a couple of them on the Apple iOS App Store. Clockwave is one I've heard about for a couple of years already, and it costs $1.99, and it simulates the atomic time transmitter so that if you put it right up next to your clock or your watch, it actually creates its own little radio signal somehow that the clock is able to interpret as though it were receiving from WWVB. Or some of these also will simulate the other transmitters from different parts of the world. With Casio, there's multiband 6, so those clocks, those watches, are designed to receive from an atomic time transmitter in 6 locations in the world. There's one in China, there are 2 in Japan, one in the UK, one in Germany, and of course the one here in the United States that I rely on. So if you've got a multiband 6 watch from Casio and you're within range of any of those 6 transmitters, you should be just fine. Your clock will be setting itself to the right time and staying accurate all the time. That's great. So what about the apps? Okay. Well, here's one thing I've learned about apps. If the app is coming from an app developer and their primary business is selling apps, then they try to make the app as good as they can and charge you a modest fee to buy the app. So $1.99 for Clockwave seems like that's reasonable. If you're getting your apps from a company that primarily does something else to make most of their money, and an app goes with their product, they'll usually sell you the product and charge whatever they think is reasonable for that product, and then they'll give you the app for free. So there are a couple places where you can get this same functionality for free. One of them actually comes from Junghans. They're out of Germany. So I got the Junghans MEGA app for my phone and my tablet, and I've tested it out, and it works, and it was free. There's a couple things about it that make it, it's not completely foolproof, but it's okay. I've actually played with it, and I kind of like being able to mess it up a little bit if I want to. But if you just use it pretty straightforward and don't try anything tricky with it, it works. And I was able to set this using the app. Now, the app from Junghans, again, they make watches. And they released the app as support for their watches, for those people who live in a place where reception is difficult or impossible. So when you get into the Junghans app, you're going to see some references to their watches and telling you how to use a specific watch with the app. So for me, since I don't have those watches, that part of the app is really not that relevant. I'm not going to pay too much attention to that. But what I really like is just this main screen where you tell it what to do when you want to set your device. So this is actually pretty straightforward. All right, so here it is, the Junghans app. I'm just going to start this up, and usually when you start it up for the very first time, it might ask you to go through, some stuff like, can it use your location automatically to try and figure out where you are? I told it no because, again, too many little things running in the background, but it's your choice on that one. If you swipe over here, you have the ability to get little news updates from Junghans. I haven't been getting that right now. Here's the instructions, and you got some tabs there so you can get some more instructions about how to use the app. Here's some instructions on their watches and how to use their watches. And here's some instructions specifically about their solar technology. So all of that. But really for me, the main thing, I'll just go back to right here, the Mega app. And as you see on this screen here, it's, first of all, up here it says unknown position. And it says that because, well, I didn't activate the location services. So if I tap on this little icon of the globe, I can select the region of the world where I am. So as is normally the case with these, I have to go all the way down to the bottom of the list or near there to get to the United States. So now I've just told it I'm in the United States. I'll tap done. And so now on this main app screen, it says United States up in one corner. And right here, it's telling me my current time and the current date in kind of the European format there with the day of the month first, then the month, then the year. So today is February 3rd, 2021. Now at this point, here's what I'm going to do to use this app. It's got kind of a play button here in the middle. I'll press play, and then I'll also turn the volume up as loud as it can go. And then I'm going to take, say, my radio-controlled watch here, and I'm going to manually activate the reception function on this so that it's going to try to listen to WWVB. And then I'm just going to set the watch very close to this speaker. And you can hear it's making some clicking sounds and some odd little sounds here. Now people are going to wonder, how in the world is this thing converting audio out of the speaker into some radio wave that the watch is going to interpret as, the correct time from the atomic clock? And at first, when people started talking about an app that could do this, there was a lot of skepticism out there. How in the world do you do that? It's almost like saying, if I turn these lights up all the way, they're going to create radio interference. But wait, that radio interference, I tune it just right, and it turns into a perfect episode of I Dream of Jeannie or some TV show I want to watch. That doesn't seem possible. But the reason this works, and this is me explaining it as well as I can based on, I think I understand the concept here. What they've done, some genius figured this out. They've created a little audio thing that when it runs out to the speaker, the circuitry inside the device is creating an electromagnetic field that actually simulates what is coming from WWVB. So they advise you to turn it up all the way, and that kind of maybe amplifies what's going in through the circuitry here. So what I'm going to say, and you may correct me because I may be wrong about this, but this is how I understand it. Every device like this creates a little bit of an electromagnetic field as it's running, an electronic device, right? So sometimes it's very minuscule, sometimes it can be much stronger, like an electric motor or a microwave oven, something like that is going to create a much stronger electromagnetic field. This one, it's a small device, probably not producing much. That's why you have to put the watch right up next to it. But whatever is happening in that electromagnetic field that's creating this audio is done in such a way that what it's creating there, what it's transmitting out, if you will, in the electromagnetic spectrum is actually apparently a perfect simulation of what the watch wants to receive from WWVB. And part of that is, if I said, well, the interference coming from my lights, from, the dimmer that affects my TV, it creates something as complex as a complete episode of I Dream of Jeannie. That's not plausible. But the data that this is receiving from WWVB is actually quite simple. And that's why some genius figured out the way to simulate that in this app form. Okay, still kind of sounds like how does that work? Are you sure that's really what it's doing? And I don't know, maybe I'm not sure that's what it's actually doing, but what I do know is that it works. And so you just leave this sitting there long enough, and it's going to, at some point, whatever the clock or the watch needs to do to receive its radio control information, it's going to do it just as well as if it had received an actual radio transmission from WWVB. Now granted, my experiments here haven't given me perfect results, but they have given me some results. And part of that is, you really should know, or see if you could figure out, where is the antenna exactly on this watch? Is it the top, bottom, one of the sides? I don't know. This app tells me that with their Junghans clock, the antenna is right there about the 8 o'clock position, inside the watch. So they're saying to get that part of the watch as close to that speaker as you can in order for it to work. Again, I don't know if I'm still getting some interference from the actual WWVB transmitter, and that's why sometimes the results aren't great. One thing I did was I picked a spot in my basement. There's kind of a storage room where three sides, almost all sides of this happen to be like a concrete box. And so I figured radio reception is not very good in there. So I put the phone and the watch in there, and I kind of experimented with the position of the watch on the phone until I got it just right. And it worked. It was receiving just from the app, and it set the device. And so one thing I noticed also on here, let me just show you on this app again. So right here in the middle, it says current time and date, right? If I tap on that, it allows me to choose a different date and a different time. And this is how I was able to experiment and kind of confirmed that this was actually working. I picked a different date and a different time than the actual time, and I said, I'm done there. And then I went through this entire process with the thing set to the wrong date and time, and then I went through the setting process on this clock here. So if you look at this clock next to this Oregon Scientific alarm clock right here, you'll see that they don't show the same time. Now this one here, this is the ironic thing. I can manually set this to any date and time I want. But in this case, I let it set itself to the right time with WWVB. This one here, I cannot manually set it to any date and time, but I did it with this app, and that's why this one is significantly different from this one. Both the date and the time are quite a ways off compared to the actual atomic time. So, okay, so that worked. I did the same thing here with this, this is a Radio Shack alarm clock based on an Oregon Scientific design. And you can see that these two clocks are, again, not in sync with each other because this one was set wrong using the app and using the clock's automatic setting feature, and this one was just left overnight last night to set itself to the right time with WWVB. So since I was able to set a couple clocks incorrectly using the app, that's how I know the app works. Again, I don't need the app normally for what I do here because my house is close to Colorado and reception is good. I'll just show you also these watches. I was experimenting with these in a couple different places. So this G-Shock watch here is set to the right time because it received time from WWVB. And these other two Wave Scepter watches, I set them differently using the app in two different locations off two different devices, set to two different times, and that's why these are wrong and this one is correct, even though they were all set using the app or actual WWVB. These were not set by me pushing buttons. All I did was activate manual reception, and I let the apps throw these off just to prove that it really does work. Now, here's the Clock Sync app, which is also free. I'm not sure who makes it. I just discovered that today also, so I'm gonna just start this up and see what it does. Okay, right there, very, very easily it is showing me the current date and time, and also looks like it's got some ad support on here. Right there, it shows me it's radio station WWVB, and here, well, let's look into the settings and see what I can do. All right, based on my time zone, it has selected WWVB for me, but I could, it looks like, manually select some other atomic time transmitter. if I wanted to. The trick there would be, let's say I wanted to set my watch to the time in Japan. I would then select one of these Japanese transmitters, and then I would also select a time zone on the watch, like say Tokyo, before I initiate the manual receive. Now you'll notice that it has not updated the time, the local time here for me. It's still showing me that it's the middle of the day, 12:03, which is the real time where I am. Now, if I did this, and this I did this on the Junghans app earlier last night. If I tell the watch, you're in Tokyo, and I have the app set to Tokyo, or one of the Japanese transmitters, and I do this process of setting it, it's going to think that it's noon in Tokyo, and it's going to set this to be noon in Tokyo, and it will be wrong, but that's what I told it to do. Yeah, now it's showing me as I go back to the settings that there's a Pro Edition. So I've got the free version here. I'm not sure what's in the Pro Edition, but I assume, you have to pay a little bit for that. So that's fine. You can do that if you'd like to. And then over here, there's Beast Mode. I don't know what Beast Mode does. Let's see. Oh, okay. That's part of the that's part of the paid version, Beast Mode, and I'm not sure exactly what it does. But let's see. And then here's, of course, I push the help, and I guess I could go through and read up on this watch. But let me just see. So it looks like on here, I'm stuck with, it's going to set this to whatever my current time zone is. Unlike the Junghans app, which allowed me to throw the setting off by days and, several hours and several days. I could set it to any date and time I wanted to. This one looks like it's just going to give the time based on whatever the local time happens to be. One thing I should also tell you about the Junghans app, let me just go there again really quickly and show you that if I go to the settings on this one, let's see, one of the things I have the ability to choose here is use NTP time instead of device time. So that's important. If your device is somehow off by a few seconds, but you'd rather have this check with a time server online to get the correct time before it sends it to your watch, you would want to enable using NTP time instead of the device time. So, all right. So it looks like here, if I go back to clock sync and I press start, again, I'm going to turn this up all the way, and it's going to emit some clicks and some other weird sounds, and it's going to basically do the same thing the Junghans app was doing in order to create whatever it is it creates that simulates the time coming over the radio from Fort Collins. So, all right, just let that go. Again, very similar to the Junghans app. The Junghans app allows a little bit more. You can fiddle around with it and, cause a little bit of mischief if you want to set your clock to the wrong time on purpose. Well, hang on, think of this. When I was a kid, there was this product called Mr. Microphone. Cheesy product. It was a cordless microphone with a little radio transmitter in it, and so it had maybe a range of up to 50 feet. You could tune this in and then use a normal radio, tune it to the same frequency as the microphone, and suddenly you were on the radio. And there was this horrible, cheesy commercial that they used to run for Mr. Microphone. And I'm going to put a link to that in the description of this video. You must watch it. Whether you remember Mr. Microphone or you are not old enough to remember, you have to watch. I'm going to give you the link. You must watch this horrible commercial that they used to run for Mr. Microphone. And please don't complain about it. I don't want them to take this off YouTube. This is an artifact that must remain available to view, even though it's so very awful. I didn't have a Mr. Microphone when I was a kid, but I did have a little kit that I bought from like Radio Shack. We put a few components together and you could transmit onto AM radio. And so even as a kid, I thought that was really cool, that I could talk into my microphone and it could come out of a radio wirelessly, maybe, the other side of the house. And I thought, it would be fun if I turned this on every night. My friends that live a couple doors down could listen to me here and have my little suburban pirate radio show and be as big as WLS. I'd be the next John Records Landecker. But, that, of course, that didn't work out like that. But it was just fun to know that even though I had this very limited range, very limited thing, it was still me transmitting radio from this wirelessly to a real radio. And so that's what it's kind of fun to have an app that it's my own atomic time transmitter. It may have a range of that much, and this is the only way to make it work. But it's still cool to know I can deliver the time to my devices myself, and I can set it to whatever I want it to. That's pretty cool. Also, people have had a little bit of fun with this. Rather than use the internal speaker on your device, maybe they plug in some earbuds, some corded earbuds, and kind of wrap that around the watch, or experiment with positions on that to maybe increase the reception, because, the watch is not actually using the sound, it's using the electromagnetic field generated by the circuitry. So maybe, again, you could use corded headphones of some sort to fiddle with that until you find just the right combination. I don't know that I'll become a super expert on these apps because, of course, I just rely on over-the-air stuff. And I've told you that already. So anyway, it's a good alternative. It's a great alternative, actually, if you're in a place where it's difficult to receive WWVB. You can still get your automatic updates. Just remember, you got to turn the app on when the watch is in its automatic update mode. For these watches, it's every hour on the hour, starting at midnight and up to 6 times. So if you want to, make sure you turn this on at midnight and let it sit there for a while, right there with the watch. Or, of course, you can initiate manual reception on here when you do it. If you just let it go, this one times out after about 35 minutes. So it'll sit there and click and make little strange noises. And, if you don't stop it 35 minutes later, it's going to stop itself. All right, have some fun with that and see what you think of those. Again, you've got some free alternatives to the paid app. And, again, it's up to you. I'm not going to make a judgment on is the paid app better than the free app, because I haven't paid for the paid app yet. And again, I keep saying this, I'm not in the best place in the world to test these against the real thing, because I get the real thing every night. All right, well, that's all for now, and I hope you have some fun with that, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another episode of The Good Timekeeping Show.